Dua. Hotel. We ask for permission from our ancestors to speak today.
Ashe.
We must invoke your consent to even open our minds. We are cries from the womb. We come to you with a divine feminine cosmology. Yeah, Mother Earth, Mother Nature.
The queen bee, the great cosmic mother, as above, so below.
Come on.
We understand and relate to the black woman.
My eye.
For she is the key to our survival.
Come on.
Don't y'all get it? I guess not.
That feminine energy, the first ancient cosmology of the world before it was corrupted. That divine, feminine, primordial concept of the womb.
Come on.
Dua, creator, divine force, supreme energy, and great power. Lead us on this journey called life. Looking forward to the Duat.
Ancestors, be with us at this moment.
Sekhmet.
Guide and protect us, for we are your offspring. We will never forget your sacrifices
Natural.
and continue influencing
Divine principles.
and energy in our lives.
Hotel.
Ashe.
The primeval waters of noon. Hotep, beautiful people. How's everyone doing tonight? I am your big brother, and this is Adults Only. And my name is Jahi. And tonight, before we get started, I wanted to let you know at the outset that I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to watch this broadcast. That means a lot to me. And I definitely wanted you to know that that's something that I don't take lightly, because you don't have to watch it, but you've taken time out of your busy schedule. And I like to say that that's something that I truly and I definitely appreciate. And I hope that you all learn something every time that we watch this broadcast together, because I learn something every time we do it. But tonight, we're going to continue to talk about our subject. And our subject tonight is going to be the enormous wealth gap between African Americans and European Americans. When I say that, I'm talking about those people who were kidnapped from Africa, the descendants of the enslaved, that's us, and brought over here. And so I'm also talking about the Europeans who left Europe and came over here and started this country. So tonight, we're going to continue the discussion about the enormous wealth gap between African Americans and European Americans. There's a huge wealth gap, and many of us are not aware of it. There's a grand wealth gap, and a lot of us aren't aware of it. Why is that? Because so many of us, we're talking about everything under the sun, except for that which is important to us and should be important to us. It should be important to you because your children and my children's children and all those people in our family have been affected by this wealth gap. Why do we as a people have very, very little? Because a lot of us don't realize that. We think that we have a lot. But I'm telling you, African Americans, as a group of people living here in this country, we are extremely poor, and we're suffering from a lack of wealth, in spite of how many movie stars and entertainers and athletes that we see. As a group of people, we are basically, and I'm making this word up, wealthless. So what we're going to do tonight is continue to delve into charts and talk about information when it pertains to the wealth gap that we have in America. Now, it's not your fault. I'm going to tell you that now. It's not my fault, but it's actually something that happened to us a long time ago, because many of us are clueless as to what has happened to us. And we think that we're all starting off on the same footing, but we're not. Other people have had a 400-year head start, and this is why they have been gaining so much when it comes to wealth. Now, before we get started, I want to define a few words, and then we'll go into some charts and talk about the rest of the story. First of all, where we mess up at as a people is we don't really understand what is the difference between wealth and income. You see, income is what we make, those of us who have jobs, if we're employed, what we get paid weekly, bi-weekly, monthly salary, that's called income. But then the difference is that when I talk about wealth, I'm talking about ownership, and that's where we struggle. And please don't mistake me, because at the outset, I will straighten this out, because I never said that as a people that we don't get money and that money does not run through our hands. We do get money. We all have touched money. We have felt money. We have exchanged money. We have purchased things. But I'm not talking about money per se. I'm talking about wealth. What do you own? What do I own as a people? And the answer is we own very, very little. So why do we play the numbers so much as a people? Why do we always gamble? Why is it that we're always looking for a lawsuit? You know, when we fall or something at a store, we're trying to sue people. You know, we're trying to sue corporations. Why are we always in townships trying to get our rent paid, trying to get our bills paid? Well, there's a reason for that. And the reason for that, beautiful people, is we don't have wealth. Why do we work 2 and 3 jobs just to try to make ends meet? And other people don't have to do that. It's because of a lack of wealth. It's because as a group of people, we are basically wealthless, brothers and sisters. And so many of us, we get angry when we have this discussion because we've been thinking all these years that we as a group of people, we have great wealth and we don't. And I often ask this question, and I asked it many times last week, but I'm gonna ask it again. If you think that you are wealthy, if you think that we are wealthy as a people, I want you right now to go to the phone and pick up the phone and call your uncle or your auntie and ask them to let you borrow $100,000. Well, we know the answer to that. They don't have it. So let's look at this thing. Let's look at this country and what has happened to us. So first of all, brothers and sisters, I want to start the process of showing some charts because these charts, they teach us and they tell us exactly what we need to know about our present condition. And our present condition is terrible. So the first chart I want to show you is this chart here. Now check this chart out, beautiful people. Look at this chart. Now this chart tells us that white households, look at it, white household wealth is 20 times that of blacks and Hispanics. I'm going to read that again and I'm going to slow it down. White household wealth is 20 times that of blacks and Hispanics. And if you look at these numbers on the side here, these numbers here represent trillions of dollars, okay? And so if you look across the spectrum of this actual handout, you're going to see that this line here represents white wealth. And these other lines, this line here represents black wealth, and then the purple one is Hispanic wealth. But you should notice that in between here, there is a gap, brothers and sisters. And this chart stops at 2019. So the gap has even widening since then. So you see that Europeans, white Americans, look at the wealth that they have. Over $100 trillion of wealth. And look at our little line. This line is basically flatlined. And so we think that we are wealthy as a people, but we're not. And because we don't have this discussion, we don't have it often enough, many of us are running around here thinking that we as a people have wealth, and yet we don't. And this is why a lot of us need to watch a broadcast like this, because I want you to see this again. Look at that. This ought to blow your mind. White household wealth is 20 times that of blacks and Hispanics. That is a shame. That is a disgrace. And it speaks to the inequalities in this country. It speaks to the bigotry in this country. It speaks to the racism in this country. It speaks to the Jim Crow, the slavery, and all the things that have happened to us for the last 400 years and the things that continue to happen to us. That's right, beautiful people. You're watching Adults Only. And this is why it's important that we have this conversation, because this conversation, it must be had. This chart ought to blow your mind because it blows mine. And so we're basically giving you some information about something that all of us should be engaging in. And this is why a lot of us run around here in this country and we don't really know much, and we're not trying to know much, only because most of us don't want to have these types of discussions, and yet these discussions are very important to us. I'm going to show you another chart, and this chart is going to help us understand more about what I just said. And some of these charts I showed last week, but I want to show again. So brothers and sisters, I want you to know that there is a huge wealth gap. there is a humongous wealth gap between African Americans living in America and European Americans who live in America now. And we have to look at these stats to see what in the world is going on. So again, I want to show you another chart because this chart here, it tells us something that a lot of us we just need to look at this and look at what it says here. Look at this. It says that it would take, let me read this here. It would take, let me put this right where you need to see it. It would take 228 years for Black families to amass wealth of white families. That's what analyst says. You see, this is a discrepancy. Why would it take us that long? Why are we so far behind in wealth? Why don't we have wealth like other groups, especially Europeans, since we've been here the longest? Why do Hispanics, and they've just come over here and they've amassed just about the same amount of wealth or more than we have? Why do people from other countries, why do people that come from Korea, why do people that come from the continent come over here now and they amass more wealth than we have now? And we've been here ever since the 1400s, the 1500s, the 1600s, and so forth and so on. So this is why we have to have this discussion, beautiful people. And I'm telling you now, this is something that a lot of us don't like to discuss because we're stuck. We don't want to move forward. We want to stay in a bubble. And that bubble hasn't given us any information. And this is why most of us just don't seem to realize that we're in a bad state. And that means if you and I are in a bad state, and we are, that means that your children are in a bad state. And my grandchildren are going to be in a bad state. And our great-grandchildren are going to be in a bad state. And our great-great-grandchildren are going to be in a bad state. Because most of us aren't interested in talking about wealth. And this is why we're in the condition that we're in. Brothers and sisters, I want to tell you something now. And this is very important. I want to tell you that as a people, we are going to have to get our heads out of the sand. We're going to have to be involved in thinking and teaching and talking about and applying the things in our lives that's going to help us be a better people. Because a lot of us, we just don't realize that it's terrible when it comes to wealth, and we don't have it. I don't care how many basketball, football, baseball, boxers, entertainers, I don't care how many athletes we see paraded on commercials. I don't care how many movie stars that we see, brothers and sisters, that are put before us to make us think that we have arrived. We, as a group of people, excuse me, we are wealthless. And this has a reason to do with most of us not really knowing what has happened to us, what is happening to us. I think I talked about it a little bit last week. After 400 years of being enslaved, you're going to let us go as a people and tell us that we're free. You're going to tell us that we're on a even playing field. You know, you're going to tell us that we should have pulled ourselves up by now by our own bootstraps. You're going to tell us that after slavery, we as a people should be on the same footing with other people when they've had a 400-year head start, when they've worked our ancestors to their graves, when they've taken advantage of us, when they amassed all of the wealth and made this country a very wealthy country. And yet you and I don't seem to want to sit down and have these discussions because most of us, we're so bankrupt in our minds. We are not interested in those things that's going to help educate us. We're not interested in those things that's going to raise up the level of consciousness to where we know what's really going on in the world. We go to church, we go to the mosques, we go to these different educational facilities. You know, we talk to our family members, and yet most of us don't even know that within this country, there's about $130 trillion worth of wealth. That's included land, that's included stocks and bonds and all of these things. And yet out of all of that, brothers and sisters, as a people, as I showed you last week, we have less than $7 trillion as a people. And most of that is going to baby boomers, which are people that were born around 1946. Those are the people that's taking advantage of the situation and leaving us behind, because they're not going to talk about it, because their families are set. And so therefore, they're not going to have this discussion, because they think that because they have theirs, that everything is equal and that everything is on an equal playing field. And this just happens not to be the case. And so let's talk about these things tonight. So again, I want to apologize for the comments. The StreamYard is the place that I'm going through now, and they're telling me that they're trying to fix this computer so that when you comment, I can see it. But I did pull out my phone and I have it to the left of me, so I can see myself. So if there are any comments, I should be able to read those comments so that we can have dialogue and that we can engage in some serious conversation. Because a lot of us, y'all, we're just so far behind. We're just like stuck in time, and we really don't know what's going on. And so this is why we're having this discussion. Again, brothers and sisters, I want to show you something else. Let's go to another chart, because these charts, they really tell the story. This chart here is a chart that I think we've seen it before. But look at this chart. You see that? It would take 228 years, you see that, for Black families to amass the same amount of wealth that white families have. That's not fair. That's not right. Who's talking about it? Who wants to talk about it? Who wants to do this? Now, no one does, especially our people, because we're too busy running the streets doing nothing. We're too busy dealing with internal issues that are killing us when we're looking at an economic situation that has done its job on us. I want to show you something else again, because I'm just showing you charts because these charts are really important. I've showed you this one. I've shown you this one already, but I want to show you this again. This chart that I'm showing you now is a chart that basically talks about how much more wealthier people are, white people, than us. And see, we have to begin to see that as a people, there's so much going on. And yet, from a wealth perspective, we're not having the right discussion that we should be having. Because, brothers and sisters, this doesn't make sense. Now, I'm going to show you a video. And the video I'm going to show you is a video it's a little bit outdated. In fact, I think the video was done in 2017, excuse me, or 2018. And what I want to do is I want to show you a video that a brother made by the name of Antonio Moore. And at the time he made the video, he basically broke down what I'm saying in simple terms. And the video is a video that's not even 2 minutes long. And he talks about what we get wrong about wealth. And I'll probably show this video again today or during this broadcast. But I definitely want you to see this video because it's so important that we realize that as a people, we got some serious problems. We have some serious problems from a wealth perspective, and we don't want to look at where we are. But I want to show you this video, okay? And I want you to just listen to what this brother is saying, and I want you to really see where we are when it comes to our wealth. Here we go.
Tone Talks brings to you the difference between black wealth and white wealth explained in less than 2 minutes. In America, we think that we understand race, wealth, and how the two intertwine. We believe in a sharing of wealth among the races that largely does not exist. The truth is, by the data, there are really hardly any blacks that are millionaires in the United States, and whites largely own almost all of the personal wealth in the country. According to demos.org, white America owns 90% of the national wealth, with the top 50% of white families holding 88% of all of America's personal wealth in their bank accounts. Despite having billionaire Oprah Winfrey, of the 14 million black families, less than a few 100,000 of these households are worth more than $1 million, and that number is shrinking. While at the same time, over 8.5 million white families are worth more than $1 million. Adding to this, almost all of the 540 American billionaires are white as well. In fact, according to a report by Credit Suisse, to be in the top 5% of black families, you only need to be worth $356,000, including your house. all while just the top few hundred white American families are worth more than all of Black America combined. Subscribe to learn more at tonetalks.org.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Should make a brass monkey want to cry. Did you hear how wealthless we are? And did you hear how the top 200 white families in the United States of America, the top 200 white families, they have more wealth than all of us 46, 45, 44 million African Americans combined. I'm going to say that again. The top 200 richest white families, they own more than all of the 45 or 46 million of us combined in the United States. You see, this is not right. I showed you last week of at least 5 families, white families, that own more rural land, more farmland than all of us African Americans, descendants of the enslaved, by all of us put together. This ought to make you want to say, wait a minute, man. Wait a minute, man. Something is wrong, brother. Something is wrong. And yet we're too busy not looking at why we're in the state that we're in. We're too busy singing, dancing, gyrating, watching television, on social media, and yet this stuff is happening right before our eyes. And so this is why I wanted you to see this, because I want to show you one more chart. And this chart is done by the Federal Reserve, and it tells us back in 2021, which is only a few years ago, where our wealth lies, where the wealth is. And when I say our wealth, I'm talking about the country. I'm not talking about us as a people, because we don't really have wealth. And this is why we have to look at these types of charts, because these charts are crucial. Now watch this, brothers and sisters. Here it is. Now, if you look at this, you're going to see that in 2021, quarter 3, this data is given by the Federal Reserve. White American families jumped to $127 trillion in wealth. This was among COVID-19. They grew as much businesses as wealth as all Black America has combined. They jumped to $12.68 trillion in business wealth. That was from 12 trillion in quarter number 2. And all the Black private businesses total only have 310 billion. So this chart is a chart that the Federal Reserve does quarterly. And it tells you where the wealth is in the United States of America. It's broken down. You see on the left side, this is the wealth component. Real estate, consumer durables, those are things that you don't have to buy that often, like a car. Once you buy it, it should last for a long time. Washer and dryer, jewelry. And then you got corporate equities and mutual funds, shares. That's like stocks, bonds, your IRAs and all of those things. Then you have pension entitlements. This is where you work for a long time and they put money into your retirement. And when you retire, you get money on a monthly basis. And this is private businesses. These are all the businesses in the United States. And then these are other assets. But it breaks everything down according to trillions of dollars. This is the white, this is the Black, this is the Hispanic, and this is the other. And you see in real estate, white people have $27.86 trillion, and we have $2.20 trillion. These are numbers that are staggering. Then you see your consumer durables. They have $5.45 trillion, and we only have 490 billion. See, we don't even have trillion. So you see, this is a great gap right here alone, you see. Then you have your corporate equities and your mutual fund shares, which we're talking about your stocks, your bonds. And this is why a lot of us, we would love to trade. We would love to own stock. We would love to have bonds, but we don't have it because we're wealthless. But look at what they have. $35.97 trillion worth of stocks and bonds. They live off of their own interests. And then look at what we have, 450 billion. That's peanuts when you compare what Europeans have in the United States of America. You see this wealth gap? It's so wide. Then pension entitlements. You notice out of all of this line here with the blacks, this is where most of our wealth is, and that's in pension. But they have $24.44 trillion worth of pension entitlements, you see. But then we only have 2.92. So this is where most of the wealth, when you add our wealth up, this is where most of our wealth is lying. So when these people that are baby boomers, when they leave the scene and their houses, dilapidate and people don't keep up everything, what's going to happen is pretty soon we're not going to have any wealth from the standpoint of as much wealth as in this country. You see, here's private businesses. Europeans have 12, white Europeans in America, $12.68 trillion. And all we have is 310 billion. You see, we talk about black businesses. We're talking about having black businesses, but we don't have black businesses because we don't have the wealth to run black businesses. We don't have what it takes. And then other assets, they have 20 trillion, and we have just 99 billion. And I want to tell you something else now. I really want to tell you something else. I want to tell you people something that we talked about last week, but I really want you to see something, and this is it. Do you know that the fastest way to become wealthy in the United States of America, the fastest way to become wealthy in the United States of America, it's not inventing anything. The days of the Industrial Revolution where people were making things and factory jobs were booming, that's over with because the factories have now moved across the waters overseas, okay? But so now the fastest way that people are getting wealthy, the fastest way that people are getting rich, I showed you a chart from last week, but the fastest way that people are getting wealthy is called wealth transfer. That means that when people's parents die, or when people's grandparents die, they pass their wealth on to its generational wealth. They pass their wealth on to their children. And then their children pass their wealth on to their children. And then their children pass their wealth on to their children. And this is why a lot of us don't see what's really going on. So this is what I'm trying to get us to see. The generational wealth is already set. It's calcified. They already have it. And this is a reason that a lot of us don't realize that we're really in a bad place. We're in a bad state. So the generational wealth, they're passing on, it's going to be $68 trillion, the biggest wealth transfer in the history of the United States. And guess who's going to benefit from it? And guess who's benefiting from it? Not you, not me, because we don't have it. And that's why we ought to have these kinds of discussions. So brothers and sisters, let me give you some application before this broadcast is over with. In other words, you may ask, what do we need to do? What can we do? Well, this is the first thing we can do. We must accept, excuse me, accept the reality, y'all, that we are in a terrible position as a people when it comes to wealth. I'm going to say that again. Accept the reality, because that is a reality, that we are in a terrible position as a people when it comes to wealth. It's not our fault, but it is what it is because of 400 years of slavery and not getting paid, because of Jim Crow, because of segregation, because of unfair laws, because of conflict leasing, because of black codes, because of all these things that have happened to us. It has now taken its root in our lives. And that's why we're people that don't have anything. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because I'm shiftless. It's because the wealth has been calcified, meaning that the wealth is where it is in the United States. And this is why we have to accept this reality, and that we have to realize that we are not a people who have it. I don't care how many athletes we see on commercials. I don't care how many entertainers are in movies. We as a people are basically a wealthless people when you amass all of us and put together what we have. Someone may say, what is something else we can do? We can stop living in a fantasy world. Now that you know the truth, and now that I know the truth about our lack of wealth, stop living in a fantasy world. Stop thinking one day that you're going to be a millionaire. Stop thinking one day that you're going to invent something that's going to make you a millionaire. No, I'm not pouring water on anything. I'm being honest about the reality. Don't live in a fantasy world. Stop thinking that as a people, we have all this wealth coming from everywhere when we don't, brothers and sisters. And I don't know why we can't seem to realize that we don't have much as a group of people. And that's what it's all about. The majority of us don't have money in the bank. The majority of us don't have stocks. The majority of us don't have bonds. The descendants of the enslaved, the African Americans, the majority of us don't have insurance. The majority of us don't have jobs. The majority of us, we're struggling. And so all I'm doing is trying to slow this down to show you that we're not having this fantasy discussion. This is real, what we're talking about today. You see, this is real. Another thing we need to do is this. We need to live within our means. Whatever we have, as little as it may be, we must live within the means of what we have, brothers and sisters, because a lot of us are living outside of the means of what we have. The little that we have, we got to stop thinking like we are all that when we're not. We've got to stop spending foolishly on things that we don't need, things that we can't afford, things that are taking the little that we have. So this is why we have to have this discussion. Live within your means of what you have, because we don't have much. And because of that, we should be taking advantage of the little bitty things that we have. We should be very, very frugal in what we do when it comes to spending. Stop spending and living and thinking that we're these entertainers and we're these athletes, because we really don't have it, y'all. And then here's something else that I want to show you, but let me take a swig here. Here's something else that we must do. As a black people, and when I say black, please don't get me mixed up. I'm talking about the descendants of those who were enslaved here in the United States of America. I'm not talking about Africans who came from the continent who now live here. I'm not talking about people who came from the Caribbean, people who came from Mexico, people who came from other countries. No, I'm talking about the 45 million of us descendants of those who were enslaved. We must push for reparations. That's the only thing that's going to ingrain in us the wealth that we need to compete. Then we won't have to complain about not being able to buy 2 tires. We won't have to complain about trying to get a new car when we need one. We won't complain about having to go to the laundromat all the time. We can buy our own homes, see. But this is what we must do. We must push for reparations and be in an organization or be involved in an organization that is reparations seeking. You can no longer be going to these places that's not talking about the wealth of your children and your children's children. We can no longer afford to do this. We have to be in an organization. We have to be involved, because that's what it's going to take. And I'm going to do a broadcast probably next week about the things we get wrong about closing the wealth gap. Because a lot of us say, if you go to college, you can close the wealth gap. I'm going to show you that's not going to do it. We have more people in colleges and universities than ever before, but the wealth gap is still wide. People say, well, if you learn a trade, you can close the wealth gap. That's not going to do it. You know, there's at least 10 things that we were told that, you know, if we start taking care of ourselves better, that's going to close the wealth gap. No, it's not. I want to show you the lies that we have fallen for, and that these things that we've been told, these lies have not closed the wealth gap. And we've done basically everything that they've said. We've done everything that they've said when it comes to trying to close the wealth gap. We've gone to school, you know, we've gotten our certain little jobs, you know, we've done a lot of stuff, but we still have a wide wealth gap. And that's why, as I said last week, when you go to a sporting event, you normally see more white people in the United States because they have the money. They don't bat an eye when it comes to wealth because they have it. But you and I, we're struggling, see? We're arguing with one another because we don't have wealth. And because we don't know about it, this is what put us in this bad state because we're not talking about it intelligently. So you should be, and I should be, pushing for reparations. Why? Because it's owed to us, you see. And another thing is this. Don't tell us that the United States does not have the reparations that we're fighting for. Don't tell us this. Why? Because the United States, at this moment, right now, they are supporting foreign countries. And listen to this information. The United States promised more than $500 million, $679.9 million to Ukraine in 2020. Now they're doing this because they want this war. They want to help them and all that. I get that. But what about us? What about us? That's almost $1 billion they're giving to them. The United States pledged $1.8 billion in military aid since 2001. Since 2001. The United States pledged this money. Listen, in 2020, brothers and sisters, in 2020, the United States gave $3.8 billion in aid to Israel. To Israel. $3.8 billion to Israel for a long-term deal, you see. This was under the Obama administration. And we can't get anything. When we talk about it, y'all shouldn't be complaining about it. Y'all should do this and do that. You cannot pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, I should say. I cannot. I don't care what and who's in office. We are owed this. Afghanistan received the most United States foreign aid, brothers and sisters, in 2021. $1.5 billion the United States gave to Afghanistan in the form of humanitarian and emergency assistance. You see, we have it, but we don't fight for it. If somebody steals something from you, you should want that back. If someone takes something from you, you should want that back. Someone has stolen from us. Someone has taken from us. Someone has robbed us. And most of us don't want to even talk about reparations. You see, these are the things, brothers and sisters, that I want you to be aware of, because these are the very things that have bothered us. And this is why we're not in a better condition. It's not your fault. The United States gave land grants away in the 1800s for people to move here, because when the European colonies came and settled along the East Coast in 1619, when they settled along the East Coast, there was virtually no one in the central and the western area other than our ancestors, which we call Indians. But they gave people land grants to come to this country. In other words, they gave them free land to come and settle so they can build their homes. And their homes, they built homes. And then from that, these are the other ways they amassed their wealth. Then they got our ancestors and made us work for them. So they got land grants, homestead acts. Many of your universities that are built, many of your universities, they were built by homestead acts. These were land grants they were given. In other words, they had built these universities and people could go to these universities for free, but we couldn't go to them. So don't tell me that reparations is a handout. Everybody else got free land. Everybody else got free wealth. And when we talk about it, then we have a problem with that. Brothers and sisters, we have to do a much better job at realizing the importance of basically we don't have wealth, and yet a lot of us aren't interested. And this is why my numbers on this broadcast, this is why we will never have a whole lot of people, because a whole lot of people aren't interested in this. And it's sad. Most of us talk this black, we talk this Afrocentrism. We talk this spirituality, but we're not interested in having the discussion that's going to help us. If you're not busy on the first and the third Saturday of every month, I need you to watch the Ja and the Kev show. That's this cup I'm drinking from right now. It's another brother. His name is Kevin. And Kevin and I, we have a broadcast. It's on YouTube. It's a live call-in on the first Saturday at 1 o'clock. The first Saturday, we're going to be doing a broadcast on leadership and how many of our leaders have misled us. And because we've been misled so long, a lot of us aren't coming back because a lot of us are so far gone. We're just involved in religion, we're involved in traditions, and these people have gotten to us so much that we cannot come back. And that's going to be a sad broadcast, but we're going to talk about the leaders today, most of them, not all of them, most of them. And then we're going to give you some application so that a lot of us can come out of this nonsense because it's destroying us. It's destroying our lives. But I want you to watch that, the Kev and the Josh show, which comes on every first and third Saturday right now at 1 o'clock, and subscribe to our channel. Another thing is support Adults Only. Support Adults Only. Support this broadcast by just cash out Big Brother Jahi. Support this. All this equipment that I have, yes, it has to be maintained on a monthly basis. So if you can find it in your heart to just cash out Big Brother Jahi, I would truly appreciate it. And I would like to say I would thank you in advance because that's exactly what we need to do. So brothers and sisters, again, thank you for tuning into this broadcast. And I'm not signing off, but I'm just so grateful to the few that watch this broadcast. Because again, you didn't have to do it, but because of your kindness, because you want to learn, because you want to engage in serious discussion and dialogue, you chose to watch this broadcast. And all I can say for that is thank you. And realize that we as a people don't have much wealth. We have to get that out of our mind. No matter how many people we see on the big screen, no matter how many people throwing a ball or catching the ball or kicking the ball or running with a ball, no matter how many people are hitting a ball, no matter how many people are entertaining us, we have to get that out of our mind, that that's not a drop in the bucket. Because when you take the wealth that we have and you put it next to the wealth that other people have, I just showed you that. The Federal Reserve data, we just showed you that. And yet we're still stuck, many of us, in a fantasy world. And so this is what it's going to take. I'm going to show you that video again about the wealth in America, because I think that tells it really simply put. It's an older video, but just listen to these words, brothers. Listen to these words, sisters, because this is something that we have to have explained, because I don't think that a lot of us really realize that this wealth that we're talking about now is something that a lot of us don't know about. Check this out.
Tone Talks brings to you the difference between black wealth and white wealth explained in less than 2 minutes. In America, we think that we understand race, wealth, and how the two intertwine. We believe in a sharing of wealth among the races that largely does not exist. The truth is, by the data, there are really hardly any blacks that are millionaires in the United States, and whites largely own almost all of the personal wealth in the country. According to demos.org, white America owns 90% of the national wealth, with the top 50% of white families holding 88% of all of America's personal wealth in their bank accounts. Despite having billionaire Oprah Winfrey, of the 14 million black families, less than a few 100,000 of these households are worth more than $1 million, and that number is shrinking. While at the same time, over 8.5 million white families are worth more than $1 million. Adding to this, almost all of the 540 American billionaires are white as well. In fact, according to a report by Credit Suisse, to be in the top 5% of black families, you only need to be worth $356,000, including your house. All while just the top few hundred white American families are worth more than all of black America combined. Subscribe to learn more at tonetalks.org.
That ought to make you sad. What is wrong with us? What has happened to us that we don't even want to know about our wealth condition, which is going to affect our children and their children? Why don't we want to listen to and talk about things that are going to help us as a people? Why are we so stuck on stupid? Many of us. Why don't we have the right mindset, the right ideology when it comes to looking at broadcasts and looking on social media to people that's going to encourage us, people's going to share with us? We have no wealth as a group of people. I don't care how many people you see on the commercial. I don't care how many basketball, football, baseball, boxers. I don't care how many entertainers we see as a group of people. And this is why many of us get angry. because we know that many of those brothers and sisters that come from us, they came up in the ghetto. They came up in the slums. And now that they've made it, they've turned their backs on us. And now we're to fend for ourselves. And you don't have a problem with it. And I don't have a problem with it, which we should. They know better. They know that racism is rampant in this country. They know that laws are unjust. They know that we as a people have little to nothing. But now that they've made it, and we still support them, we love them, we would fight and kill for them. And many of these people have turned their backs on us. But you don't want me to say anything about them. You don't want me to say anything about the truth of what they're doing to us. But they're affecting your children. They're affecting my children. They're affecting our children's children. And yet you act as if you can't realize that many of these people are not just sellouts. Many of these people have basically washed their hands with us. And now that they've made it, they're on the big screen. And we're not hating. We're not hating, but it is what it is. So this is why we have to have these kinds of discussions. This is why you need to watch these kind of broadcasts. This is why I need to watch these kind of broadcasts, because these broadcasts are very important. I want to see if I can invite someone on the screen. But in the meanwhile, brothers and sisters, I'm going to continue to talk about the importance of how we as a people, we just seem like I don't know what to say. I really don't. I don't know what to say about us. But what I do want you to know is this, that we're talking about today, this is as serious as it gets. And this is why I have these kinds of discussions, because we need to realize that $68 trillion is in the process of being transferred. And they're not necessarily in monetary gains. I'm talking about wealth. I'm talking about stocks. I'm talking about bonds. I'm talking about insurance policies. I'm talking about homes. I'm talking about land. This is in the process of being transferred. And guess who's getting it? Guess who's getting it? Not your children, not my children, not your family, not my family. This is already calcified. This is why people that doesn't look like us, they can buy their children homes. They can give them down payments on they can buy them cars. They can send their children through college and not miss a beat. Because next week, I'm going to show you some data that's going to show you that there are so many millionaires. Now, Tone told you that was back then. It was 8.5 million white people in the United States. This is why we're segregated, because they have the money to move out. They have the money to go somewhere else. And so I want you to know that this is why we have these discussions. Now, I'm going to bring on a brother, Chaz. He also does music with me, Cries from the Womb. We're working on music all the time, but he's going to come on and I'm just going to ask him some questions. And if you want to get on this broadcast, all I ask you to do is message me your email, or just email me at jahiosaze, O-S-A-Z-E, at gmail.com. And then what you'll do is I'll call you, put your number in there too, so I can call you and I'll let you come on the broadcast within the last maybe 15 minutes, because I want to give him an opportunity to talk about this information. And this makes this broadcast that much more important. So I'm going to bring him on now, and we're going to see what's going on with Chaz. What's happening, Chaz?
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm doing all right, and yourself?
I'm doing fine. What do you think about this information that your big brother is talking about?
Man, it's totally edifying. If you just look at the information that you're giving out and actually study it, inhale it, and just study it deeply, you'll see it's actually beneficial. And it's kind of sad that I was listening to your other broadcast as well last week, how you were saying it would take 228 years for us African Americans to catch up with these people. It's a shame that they designed it this way. It's a crying shame.
Well, what do you have to say, Chaz, about our people that's not interested in the reparations and talking about these things?
There's going to be a group of people who are thirsting and hungry for this information, but for the ones who, like you said, that don't care, I think, like you just mentioned before I got on, brother, we're too far gone, man. Okay. A lot of us, we just don't care if it doesn't have anything to do, like you said, athletes, rappers, singers. We just don't give a doggone.
Okay, that's interesting. Are you learning from adults only? You're learning information from this broadcast?
Learning a lot. Let me go ahead and ask you or give you a compliment. My favorite teaching that you do, and I cannot get enough of, and I hope you go back to it, is the exercise. I love those exercise tips. And it's not, like I said, and for the people that's listening, it's not to put us down. I'm just saying I love listening to these talks because it affects us African Americans twice. And I don't know if you guys have been listening. On the news the other day, I heard something about the meat. The meat that we're consuming is killing us at a high rate. And if we exercise, it could kind of, stop it a little bit. But I really enjoy all these talks. All of them are very edifying. I make sure I'm logged on 5 minutes before you even on, brother.
Okay, good. And this is true because we do have to get back to our health. We're talking about wealth now, but like you mentioned, it rhymes, health and wealth. But the health, we are killing ourselves. We're going to do more of that because diabetes,
Yes.
too much sugar, too much salt, too much grease, too much soda water, too much beer, too much dope. I mean, it's a lot of things going on, and we're obese as a people, and we don't want to have these discussions, Chaz. And I think that's really sad when we have a group of people who see that our grandparents are dying young, we're dying young, and we still don't want to have this discussion. What do you say to that?
I think, I don't know if you shared that information, but I sent you a video a few years ago, what have you, where it showed that the health experts are expecting half of the population to be obese. I want to say about the year 2030 or somewhere around that. And it's like they're sitting back banking on it. And it's sad in us as African Americans, when we sit back, we eat all this food. The next thing that we say, you got anything to smoke, bruh? It's just, I mean, it's not good. It's terrible, but we got to do better with that. But like I said, I'm really, really enjoying these teachings. If you don't mind me asking, to get ahead of myself, next week, what's your program going to be about?
I think what I want to do is I want to look at the 10 things that we get wrong about closing the wealth gap. The wealth gap is enormous right now, but you hear people say all we got to do as a people is go to college and get an education that'll close the wealth gap. They often say if we invest in stocks and bonds, that's going to close the wealth gap. Well, we don't have money for that. Right. We've gone to school. They gave us 10 things that we can do. And those things that they're telling us we can do, we've done them all. And the wealth gap is it's widening. But this shows a pervasive ignorance on behalf of many of our people, because as you mentioned earlier, our people aren't interested in those things that's going to help presume life. They want to do things that's going to take life away by shoving hamburgers and hot dogs.
Come on, brother.
I'm being honest because I'm telling you now, we don't want to have these kinds of we don't exercise. We exercise once. We're not even drinking enough water. And I know we're talking about wealth, but because you came on, you get the chance as a guest, you get a chance to just say what's on your heart. But we're not even drinking enough water. Why are we not? We know that it's hot now. Temperature is scorching, and we're still not drinking enough water. What is it going to take for us, bro?
It's not. I think a lot of people don't like water, of course, because it doesn't have any sugar in it. It doesn't have that kick to it. So a lot of us despise water. And like you mentioned, with these high heat all over the states, 110, 112, 108, these temperatures are high, and you have to drink water. But like you said, we're not going to drink it because it doesn't have any sugar or anything to it. But it's sad, and I don't want to be graphic here, but the obvious test to see how dehydrated we are is when we urinate, we cannot even stand up because our privates are burning. That's an indication that we're not getting enough, and some people just don't care.
And what about the adults who have children? Don't you think that these adults should be teaching this because their children are affected greatly by this?
Yes, they should. And there's nothing wrong with giving our loved ones, like, little Capri Sun packs or little packets of apple juice and things like that. It's nothing wrong. But we need to teach them, get them those little bitty mini bottles of Ozarka water or whatever we can afford. And just make sure that we're telling them to, drink, maybe 2 or 3 of those. Just get them in the habit. So that way, when they get older, they know this information. You don't want them just sitting back, drinking Capri Suns all day. That's a terrible look.
Well, Chaz, I'm telling you, I really appreciate you coming on, brother. I know we do music together and we do a lot of other things together, but I'm glad you were the first one to come on, and now people can see that it's not that tough. All you got to do is accept this thing, and then basically You have to follow the commands, and that way when you come on, whatever's on your heart, you can talk about, regardless of what I'm talking about, because
Right.
this is something I want to have interaction with
Right.
those people that watch the broadcast, because I think it's important that people take part, not just watching it, but maybe
Right.
there's something on their heart or they're going through something and they want to share that with us. So I just want to say, if you have any final words, I'll give you the last words, and
Sure.
then I'll continue because I only have about 3 minutes left. So
Okay.
go for what you got to say.
I'll be real quick. I think this is a good broadcast as usual. And I actually think this is a good idea to actually have interaction where we can get to talk to you personally, as far as in a respectful manner, and ask questions about some of your teachings or just in general. This is a fabulous idea. And in fact, let me ask you real quick. Are you going to be doing this in the future, letting us on this like once a month kind of thing?
No, I'm going to do it every week that I come on. The only thing is I got to have people to email me. So they have
Okay.
to they message me or Cries Womb. They can leave a message. Just leave your email and your
Okay.
phone number, or you can email me rather, or you can message me. If you email
Okay.
me at jahiosaze.com,
Okay.
basically what you need to do is just leave your email address and your phone number. So I'll call you first, so that
Okay.
way I'll let you know that you're going to be on the broadcast, and
Sure.
that way you'll know in advance. And if nobody else comes on, maybe I'll have let you come back on again.
Yeah, I was going to beat you to the punch. You know me. If I'm alive and I'm still breathing, I'll be on this thing every week. But departure notes, I know you got to get ready to wrap this up. I love everybody that's on here listening to this information, soaking this information, study it, rewatch it, share this with loved ones. And if you forget some of the information, write it on a sticky note, because this kind of information is going to help us live a little bit longer in life. I really enjoy your teachings, brother.
All right. Take care of yourself, Chaz. Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you. Uh-huh.
All right. You see, this is what it's all about, y'all. This is beautiful. This is dialogue. Like I said, if you want to be on the broadcast, email me, jahiosaze@gmail.com, and just leave your phone number, and I'll reach out to you and call you and let you know when you can come on the broadcast. If not, you can message me at Cries Womb and just let me know. I would love for you to come on. I want you to share what's on your heart. I want you to share what's on your mind. I want you to be able to talk to people, because this broadcast is about all of us. It's not just about me. But I do appreciate you guys tuning in to the broadcast, because this is important, that as a people, we realize that we are basically wealthless, and we need for people to understand that this is a subject that a lot of us don't seem to know about. So what I'm trying to get us to see is that in spite of who we see on TV, in spite of who we see at the movies, in spite of who we see, just making us think that we have a lot of wealth. We don't. 46 million of us. The Hispanics, the other people that's come over here since the civil rights opened up, they've amassed just about more wealth than we have, and we've been here longer than just about anybody else. So that's what I'm trying to get us to see. I love you all. I thank you so much for tuning in to this broadcast. I want you to know that overall, we have to have more discussions like this. And as the brother said, we need to get back into talking about our health. Our health is deteriorating, and we have things that we can do to help us. We're not doctors, but we know that a lot of us are dying, strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure. And a lot of that is because we just won't exercise. We won't drink water. We won't stay away from the salt. We won't stay away from the sugar. We won't stay away from the chocolate. So what I'm saying is we can encourage us all, because I'm involved too. I have to keep watching my diet and watching what I've been taking. I'm still working on my own life, but I want all us to have this as a group involvement. So again, my name is Tahi. This is Adults Only, and I thank you for tuning in. And I want you to know that you are beautiful people. And I say to all of you, as you listen to this music and we go on, I say to all of you, Shem Hotel.